hello, good morning from New York, and hello around the whole world. Welcome to this fourth virtual meeting. It's hard to believe. I just looked at the calendar that it's December already. I feel like we just had a discussion about our work program for this year 2023. It's a year that passed by very, very quickly, but I think this particular group, the network, of economic statisticians, can be very proud because there were quite a number of accomplishments, and I quickly touch on that. And thank you all in the process. So our signature piece is, of course, the sprints, and in my view, they fulfilled three important functions, and do what the network set out to do. Is they bring economic statisticians from all over the world together. They reach out to communities that are sort of in our professional neighborhood and relevant for us to work together. And they look at cutting edge topics. And we did that. So let me throw in a few sprint statistics. I mean, of course, this was the GDP and beyond sprint year 2023. There were 7 online meetings between June and October, and we were looking at the feasibility of a new integrated statistical framework to measure inclusive and sustainable well-being, and look at what's already being done, what are the research steps, who does need to work with whom, in what kind of way to take this forward. And I think I'm very proud, and I'll mention in a minute how this is important, laying a foundation, what is done at the top level in the UN. We had over 100 participants, always, even twice over 200 participants. So I think that shows the relevance of what we are doing. And it was also great to see a large variety of backgrounds. It wasn't just the traditional economic statisticians. We reached beyond at the national level and the regional and international level, and into academia and other relevant partners. And also there was a good spread in terms of seniority of participants, because it was perhaps mainly the technical experts and the subject matter experts, but also there were quite sufficient number of chief statisticians that can make sure that we connect this to the highest level. Richard and Ivo will give a summary on the substance, and we will also reflect that in a background document. And we want to share this draft background document with you. It's your document as a network. And we will also reach out, follow the good tradition to reach out into what I called earlier the neighborhood. I mean, to our friends in social demographic statistics and environmental economic accounting, environment statistics, and geospatial community. I think those are really very important partners for us. So we will have a presence at the Statistical Commission. I can't believe it, but the Statistical Commission is already very close on the horizon, starting on the 27th of February, actually. And we will start even earlier the series of high-level event. I just announced that in a letter that just went out or is going out today. On the 17th of January, we will start the road to the Statistical Commission with a webinar on GDP and beyond. And then, of course, the Network Bureau is also organizing a side event directly during the commission in February. So there is a strong presence. And the Secretary General of the UN is just about to launch a process of an expert group meeting to formulate a dashboard proposal for the Summit of the Future in 2024. So this is an ongoing discussion, and I think what the network has done, the scoping, was really laying the foundation for this discussion. But once this was done, we moved on. You moved on very quickly in close cooperation with the Committee of Experts on International Statistical Classification. We already launched that sprint series on the 25th of October, and looked a little bit at the role of the classifications, and in particular their important role of being a tool of data integration, and why it is important investing in classifications. And I particularly like this cooperation, and I was at the in-person meeting of the UN Committee of Experts on Classifications, and they were very happy also to have this dialogue and get this type of attention and having a discussion. And the second sprint session focused on revision processes. That's always an internal challenge. I mean, do you revise frequently or not so frequently, and how do you revise? So I think that's we had a good discussion on that topic. What are the fundamentals there? And what are options for the future, also using new technologies. And then in the final sprint at the end of January, we will focus even more on the role of technology in the classification universe. We had over 250 participants, which is a spectacular number for a technical topic of this nature. So if you want any additional information, we have our website and email nes@un.org. So this is all not possible without your fervent and continuous and dedicated support. So thank you to you, and in particular your leadership, Andre and Shahuda here, Canada, Maldives, and the bureau members, Indonesia, Netherlands, US, and UK, and of course my own team, putting everything together, and always also the presenters. I think you reached out to really quite an interesting group of people, and the numbers that are connecting at sometimes ungodly hours, either over here very early or over there very, very late, is a testimony to the success of these things. So I'm looking forward to the discussions today that basically lead us from 23 into 24, and some ideas of how we take this all forward and use the momentum. And I'm looking forward to working with you in 2024. And as this is already the season, I don't want to conclude without wishing each and every one and your families and your teams the best for the holiday season and for 2024. So now let's start with the substance, and I hand over to the co-chair of the network, Shahuda. Take it from here, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Stefan, for those opening remarks. It's always very nice to hear from you. It's inspiring for us. So, for today's meeting, first of all, I would like to welcome all our network members and to thank you all for joining us again for this quarterly meeting. And I hope that it will be interesting and very relevant for all of our work. We are very pleased to have Stefani Guerra from the Bank of Guatemala, who is going to kickstart with a talk on the experience of the Guatemala in the measurement of the informal economy. And afterwards, we will be bringing up what the findings and the results from our very successful Beyond GDP series that Stefan has already highlighted. And we hope that we would like to update you on how we propose to move forward with this work in the coming year. And the network is also considering pursuing some work on other topics that we see important to advance in the statistical work globally. And so in this regard, we will be ending the meeting with a few proposals for some new sprints that we would like to get your ideas and feedback so we can move forward for the new year. And as for the main objectives of this meeting, today we would like to share with you our work and ideas, and most importantly, to get your feedback and input, since our work is successful only because of the network members. And I hope we find it applicable and helpful in our own statistical objectives in our countries. So I hope the presentations that we have today will bring thought-provoking, and it will lead to interesting and fruitful discussions, and it will help guide us in our work in the upcoming year. So we will have some time for discussions after each presentations, and also you can try to put the questions in the chat as you think of the questions, and also on a matter of housekeeping, if you are not speaking, kindly keep your mic muted. And I think with that, I would like to give the floor to Ms. Stefani, who will be going to present about the informal sector in Guatemala. Stefani, the floor
Good
is
morning,
yours.
everyone. Thank you
Good
very
morning.
much. I don't know if
Stephanie,
somebody can help me
maybe
with my.
I can control your slides for you. Just tell me next. Okay, yeah. Give me a
Thank you very
second.
much.
No problem. Let me
Okay.
share the slides now.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So,
Sorry,
thank you for
can
the
you all see the
introduction.
slides?
Yeah, we can see
Okay,
it.
sure.
Thank you. So, thank you for the introduction. Today I'm going to talk about the measurement of the informal sector, the case of Guatemala. Well, we all know that statistics on the informal sector are particularly important and necessary to the statistical systems, especially in those countries such as ours, wherein the informal sector plays a substantial role in the overall employment volume and significantly contributes to income generation. So, what has been the experience of Guatemala? The next one, please. Thank you. So, the Bank of Guatemala experience in measuring the informal sector is quite recent, commencing as an initiative in subsequent to the publication of the national accounts base year 2001, which employed the system of national accounts 1993 as its methodological framework. And following these outcomes, an estimation was conducted to characterize the years 2002, 2004, and 2006, but these were intended only for internal use. It wasn't until the adoption of the system of national accounts of 2008 and the implementation of the reference year of 2013, with the assistance of the consultants Magda Asquez and Vera Perez, that the measurement of the informal sector was initiated. Right now, we have statistics from 2013 to 2021. This was initiated concurrently following the next objectives. Next one, please. First of all, identify the informal sector in the system of national accounts to determine its impact in the national economy and to characterize the economic aspects of the informality through the analysis of the production, value added, employment, and income. Next one, please. So it's important to establish the definition of the informal sector, and according to the International Labor Organization, the informal sector can be defined as units engaged in the productions of goods or services, primarily aiming to generate employment and incomes. These units typically operate with weak organization, with little or no formal division between labor and capital as factors of production, and of course, on a small scale. About the labor relations, well, they exist are primarily based on casual employment, kinship, or personal and social relations rather than a contractual arrangement with a formal guarantee. From this perspective, informal companies are productive units located in the institutional sector of households within the system of national accounts, with the only goal of creating jobs and generating income through the production of of goods and services, but this one mainly with the purpose of with a commercial purpose, right? So to establish the operational definition of the informal sector following this international recommendations, in the case of Guatemala, informal units are those meeting the following characteristics. Next one, please. So the employment size of the enterprise. Those with 5 or fewer employees are included in the informal sector. The employment status categories includes all those employed in occupational categories as employees, employers, on-account workers, contributing family workers, and day laborers. That we're going to talk more about them in a minute. About the occupation classification, well, in this case, we exclude the self-employed professionals and the government employees among all the characteristics that can be included in the informal sector. About the type of economic activity, well, the informal sector includes producers of markets of goods and services, as well as those producing goods for their own final consumption, of which they sell a part of their production. This is an important characteristic. They must sell a part of their production. And about the legal organization, well, to determine the informal unit, the industrial, commercial, fiscal, and social security regulations of the productive units must be considered. But this information is mainly obtained through the household surveys, and in the case of Guatemala, the criteria is the possession of or absence of an employment contract and the affiliation to the Social Security. This is because these household surveys are the only type of questions that are included. For example, the payment of taxes usually are not addresses in these questions, right? Next one, please. So, to establish the statistical definition for Guatemala, who are included in the informal sector, all the private employees that works in enterprises with 1 to 5 employees and do not have a social security, all the employers that work in the same type of enterprises with 1 to 5 employees and with no social security, the on-account workers in enterprises with 1 to 5 employees, and in the other hand, we have the day laborers that are in enterprises with 1 to 5 employees, and all the contributing family workers. And in other words, which are the excluded components? The next one, please. Well, as I said, the government employees, the self-employed professionals, and all the employers, private employees and employees in enterprises with 6 or more with 6 or more employees, and that work in enterprises that have social security, that paid social security. Next one, please. Which are the types of corporations included in the informal sector? Well, the Fifth International Conference of Labor Statistician Resolution defined the informal sector as a subgroup of production units included in the household institutional sector of the system of national accounts. So in other words, informal sector enterprises were defined as a subset of household unincorporated enterprises that are not constituted as a separate legal entity of the household member or members of it. So as you can see in the matrix, the institutional sector of household have 3 groups that are the informal, the formal, and the other household. And these are defined because the size of the enterprises. Next one, please. So, which are the sources of information? Well, the main sources of information investigating the household members and containing questions related to employment and labor income, as well as the characteristics of employing units, are the household surveys, in this case, the National Survey of Household Income and Expenditure and the National Survey of Employment and Income, that are carried out by the National Institute of Statistics. Some of the service characteristics are that the units of reference are the households and the units of observations are the members of it. These surveys include questions related to the definition of the informal sector in Guatemala, which allows the employment and income measurement associated with the units that are part of this sector. Now, it is important to highlight that the employment and income matrix is the result of another effort within the framework of the change of reference year 2013 and the adoption of the system of national accounts 2008, where we can resume all the labor information, the labor and income information from the surveys. So the employment and income matrix represent the main source of the direct measurement of the informal sector. The employment matrix includes jobs, hours worked of the first and the secondary job, and the equivalent employment, while the income matrix includes salaries and wages, social contribution, and mixed income. And how this constitutes the direct measurement of the informal sector? Well, next one, please. Using the income approach, the value added of the informal sector can be calculated. The value added, it's equal to the sum of the employee's compensation and the mixed income obtained by those employed in enterprises with the characteristics established in the statistical definition of Guatemala. And this information, we can have it through the household surveys and is resumed in the employment and income matrix. So at this moment, we can have the value added of the informal sector. And the next one, please. Also, we can have the production calculation, and this is obtained through the use of technical coefficients from economic surveys um, that are carried out by the Bank of Guatemala and specific studies for specific industries as the agricultural, mining, and construction activities. Once the level of the value added is established and applying this technical coefficient, that is just a relation between the intermediate consumption and the production, well, the production by economic activity can be obtained. And by deducting the value added from the production, the level of intermediate consumption was also obtained. And this can be obtained by economic activity and by product. So now we have established how we measure the informal sector in Guatemala. The next one, please. Well, we already have the production, the value added, the employment, and the income. At the official website, you can consult the methodologies for the measurement of the value added of the informal sector and the methodology of the employment and income matrix. The next one, please. Also, you can consult the statistical tables at the macroeconomic statistics section. We have the two chapters, chapter 11 for the employment and income matrix and the chapter 12 for the value added of the informal sector. Next one, please. I would like to show you some results from the last year published in Guatemala, that is 2021. Well, the participation of the value added in the total economy. This represents a 22.2% of the total economy. As I said, it's very important in statistics for Guatemala. Also represents a 60.7% only in the household sector. As I said, the household sector have the formal, informal, and other household. So a 60.7% is just for the informal sector. Some economic activities with a greater participation in the informal sector, well, the greater is the wholesale and retail with a 37.9%, manufacturing with a 14.2%, agriculture with a 13.8%, and other service activities with a 7.1%. This is value-added participation. The next one, please. When we talk about employment, well, informal sector jobs represent a 56.8% of the total economy. The informal sector actually plays a substantial role in the overall employment in Guatemala. Some of the economic activities with a greater participation in the informal sector are the agriculture with a 42%, wholesale and retail trade with a 26.8%, manufacturing with a 10.9%, and accommodation and food services activities with a 7.7%. Are almost the same activities as the with a greater participation of the value added, but in a different order, right? The next one, please. So how is the structure of jobs and labor income in the informal sector? Well, the employees represent a 23.6% of the workers, and the employees' compensations represent a 17.9% of the income. While for the self-employed, workers represent a 76.4% and 82.1% for the income. That means the mixed income is the greater participant in the structure of the labor income in the informal sector. The next one, please. I think that's it. Thank you very much. This is my mail. If you have any question or any comment about it, very welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Stephanie. That was very interesting. And so you are, I just inquire, like, is it the central bank that is conducting the surveys in the Guatemala?
Yeah. Actually, the national accounts are in charge of the central bank in Guatemala. So we are in charge of the measurement of the informal sector.
Okay, that's interesting. So do you have any country would like to ask any question or share anything with respect to this topic? Stephanie? Yeah. I can see Hadi.
Yeah. Thank you, Shauna. I think it's a great presentation since it's also happening in my country that the amount of informal sectors cannot be ignored, something like that. But I'm interested to ask you about how do you address the issue of digitalization that some people say that it makes the measurement of informal sectors is getting more difficult. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. It's a great point. Actually, we are now looking forward to adjust the new technologies to the methodology of the informal sector. Well, we are thinking about already thinking about the next change of reference year that is already coming, and actually it's approaching. So we know that it is important to to adjust this methodology to the new technologies. We are going to be looking how can we do this. Actually, we're thinking also about the considering that other sources of information besides the surveys, like the administrative data or big data generated by the new the new economic landscape, right? So we are looking forward to adjust it for the next change of reference year.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah. Thank you. I can see Miss Vivian. Vivian, you are on mute.
Okay. Nice to see everyone. And my clarification are the one on the slide relating to the value added, where you mentioned that value added is equals to EC plus uh, mixed income. This is the compensation of employees plus mixed income. Yeah, we understand the mixed income. This is automatically, we consider them as informal sector. These are done by the households, and the labor cannot be separated from the as an employer or an employee. But in the I would just like to clarify on the in compensation of employees. Are these the compensation of employees that are engaged in the enterprises where you have employment of one one to six workers?
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, actually the employees compensation is defined as the total remuneration payable by an enterprise to an employee in return for the work done. It's an enterprise with 1 to 5 employees that we can define it as a part of the informal sector through the information they gave us through the household survey. So this household survey have specific questions about how many people work in this enterprise and if they have a contract or no. So yes, it's employees in a enterprise with 1 to 5 employees.
Okay, Madam Chair, very quick follow-up question. Yes, first, you have already identified these enterprises with 1 to 5 employees that they are informal sector. Is that correct?
Exactly.
And that those workers working in this enterprise with 1 or 5 employees are considered right away as informal employees.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that's the only clarification. Because
Sure.
in terms of the criteria that you showed us, so you have like very specific criteria, and uh, possibly this is like you have a formal employer or a an informal employer, but these people are hired as informal. So yeah, it's in the ILO definition, possibly it has to be clear in the operational definition. Okay, thank you very much. This is a clarification.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Very impressive. Congratulations. Very impressive presentation.
Thank you.
Uh, is there anyone else who would like to join in? Or
Huda, there are a couple of questions in the chat.
oh, okay. Sorry. Mm. Have you considered
Mhm.
other source of information, yeah, besides
Yeah.
the survey presented? For example, you have already answered the question,
Yeah.
In, oh,
Excuse me,
I think,
ma'am.
yeah.
I have my hand up.
Oh, okay. So sorry. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm from Lesotho, and I would like to thank Guatemala for this great presentation. Some of our countries have a high contribution of this informal sector, but it's not really easy to measure it. So I want to ask Guatemala, and I'll ask you by also sharing an experience. In Lesotho, from the perspective of an economic activity census, we define the informal sector as those, among others, those units that are not registered with anyone. So I just want to know how you identify them with the use of the economic activity census or survey, whatever you call it. On the side of household survey, where you sample the households as units of interest, I want to believe it's easier on that side because you can pose questions such as, do you have a business? Is it registered? If not, then you'd consider that as an informal business. And this is what we do in Lesotho. So my main concern, or the main challenge that we have, is when we want to complement the data from the side of an economic census, when now the units of interest are the enterprises and so forth. How do you identify them? Thank you. But otherwise, this is a good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. Well, we have our own calculation based on the economic survey. This survey is carried by the Bank of Guatemala, and this was carried out by the Bank of Guatemala in order to provide information for the national account systems, compiles information from the production and income generations of the enterprise, especially on those small enterprises that are part, like you said, of the informal sector, right? And with this economic survey, we can was possible for us to get some useful estimation, as I said, of some indicators. For example, technical coefficients, right? And with these technical coefficients, we can get the production and other specific estimations for the enterprises that are part of the informal sector.
Thank you. There's one more question. Maybe you can ask it. It is from, why did you not make an informal survey? That will be more beneficial to describe the structure of production and the activities of companies. That's a question I can see from Morocco.
Yeah, well, having an informal survey actually will be more easy for everyone, right? But it's not always possible to have a survey for maybe every year. So that's why we use the income approach to so we can estimate the value added that is like the most important variable for the national account system.
Thank you. Daniela, would you like to ask the question? Or?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Stephanie. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very informative. I guess my question is, whether you considered other sources of information other than just the surveys that you presented. I mean, there's a lot of and I don't know if that's the case in the context of Guatemalan informal sector. There's a lot of information that's produced through electronic transactions. There's also administrative data, although probably when it comes to the informal economy, the administrative data is not much there. That's why it's informal. But I was just wondering if you're thinking of looking into other types of information that you can tap to complement the surveys that you have. Thanks.
Well, like this emphasis on measurement suggests a commitment to inform decision making, right, and policy formulation based on a comprehensive understanding of the changing of economic paradigms. So yes, we are looking forward maybe to use I don't know, big data maybe, so we can adjust our methodology to that type of information for the next change of reference year. Yeah, we are thinking about it.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think it has generated a lot of interest among the participants. So really thank Stephanie for this and for answering all the questions so nicely. So I think maybe we can move on to our next agenda item. We have an overview of the outcomes of Beyond GDP Sprint 2023 and the proposed next steps. So this item is going to be with a small presentation from Richard, UKONS and EVO. So I would like to hand over to Richard.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my slides. Please shout when you can see them and they're in full slide mode. Are they good? Okay, fabulous. Well, thank you very much. So I'm going to give you a short presentation today, recapping the sprints that we had earlier this year, and touching briefly on the sprints we also had last year, taking you through the journey that we've been on and some of the key recommendations which are coming together. Stefan mentioned that we are writing up a report which we will be circulating hopefully in the next few weeks to give everyone a good chance to see that before we reach the Statistics Commission in late February. So just to recap where we came from, the Common Agenda document from the Secretary General laid out some key requirements to identify a complement or complements to GDP, thinking about inclusivity and sustainability, thinking about the challenges member states have to take that road forward, and therefore we as a group, a task team under the network, set about establishing a wider group to go through some of the key challenges and questions here and to bring together effectively the current state of knowledge. So I would characterize our journey as effectively in these 4 stages. So I'm going to talk very, very briefly, because you've heard me probably talk before about the work we did in 2022, where we attempted to define really what we mean by Beyond GDP. For the Statistics Commission earlier this year, we prepared a research prospectus which you can access via the UN Network's webpage. And I'm going to say just a little bit about what we contained in there. And that really served as a jumping off point for the series of sprints that we held this year, where we focused on how different countries and different groups, different organizations and bodies were delivering beyond GDP metrics and what we could bring together from current practice and best knowledge. And I'm going to say a little bit about the roadmap that we see for our proposal for the 2024 Statistics Commission. Excuse me. So to take us back to the start of this journey, we held a series of 6 sprints last year, All the reference materials and presentations are again available on the network's webpage. And I think these four key findings really brought together the state of what we found at that point. Apologies, I have a small cough. So firstly, I think we identified that there's a long and rich history which shapes the options which are available to us. Lots of very, very strong organizations and academics and thinkers have brought their attention to bear on this topic. And partly as a result of that, the problem is not a shortage of available options. It is that there is a wide variety of metrics and options which are available to us to choose from. And so in trying to down select the best complements to GDP, it's not a case of having a short list and choosing from that. It very much needs a first stage of down selecting from a very long list. And I think we've identified between 700 and 900 items at the very least that can fall into that envelope. I think we are one of the barriers. We concluded that one of the key barriers that prevented us from being able to do that exercise was a variation in available data. Whilst there are 700 to 900 options available, very few of them are done by multiple countries, and almost none of them cover every country, and a set of those which are able to cover every country are not always able to cover every time period. There are one or two noticeable exceptions there, things like the HDI and other topics, projects which are delivered, but something with the depth of commonality of the national accounts and GDP type data are few and far between. Also, a lack of a common language. Well-being is often seen as a subset of health, and this is an area of work which does cover a large and rich group of academics and thinkers well beyond the sort of traditional economics or even statistics spheres. Beyond GDP can go a very long way beyond GDP. And finally, different ways of answering this question, whether you think about well-being first, whether you think about inclusion first, whether sustainability is your focus, whether you have a preference for dashboards or a preference for composite indices, whether you like subjective measures of well-being, whether you prefer objective measures of the key drivers of well-being. There's a lot of choice here. And I think one of the things that we also identified was that if as producers we're confused, many users are very much in exactly the same space, and being able to understand and map the options available to them and to identify which would be the right metric for their particular policy question were all things that we identified in the first sprint. The research prospectus, really to boil it down to its most fundamental contents, was a proposal that really came in 3 parts. The first was that there is a wide variety of population, social and demographic data, which we saw as being absolutely key to this debate, but without the same type of overarching organizing framework as the system of national accounts for economic data or the system of environmental economic accounting for environmental data. That's not to say that population, demographic and social statistics don't have manuals and guidance and a lot of frameworks in place, but whether these all always pulled together and shared common definitions, common classifications in the same way that allowed them to speak amongst themselves and with the economic and environmental data in the most efficient way was a question that we raised, and which our partner organisation, the Friends of the Chair of Population and Demographic Statistics, have been considering in their working parties this year. 2, having those 3 systems would be incredibly helpful, or even having 2 systems and the existing network of social frameworks and manuals is incredibly useful. But what we also required was some guidance on how to bring these together, particularly from an inclusive and self-sustainable well-being viewpoint. The framework, therefore, is proposed not to be a system in the same way to explain how you should pull the data together individually, but rather how to think about the crosswalks and linkages between the data and how to draw this into a single overarching narrative and story. And finally, very much, I think, even at that stage, a recognition that this is an incredibly huge topic that doesn't just cover economic statistics, but even within economic statistics, there are a range of other bodies that the network needed to reach out to. I've listed a couple there, and particularly the need to take account of the developments around the system of national accounts, which are being proposed for 2025. And I think very much our mind was that that would be delivered first, and then the improvements in the national accounts and the SNA, which relate to well-being and sustainability, would give us a stronger platform from which to move forward again. And therefore, the framework for inclusive and sustainable well-being would take that progress as a given, rather than look to reopen some of the boxes which are considered under that framework. And this very much merely puts this into a figurative picture to explain that whilst we have the system of national accounts and the system of economic environmental accounts, the other two, the orange blobs in the diagram, require to be captured. This was presented to the UNSC's 54th meeting, and the Commission supported the exploration of the feasibility of a research agenda, which we took alongside the social friends of the chair group to determine our work for this year, and which shaped our next set of sprints. And so the next few slides, I'm going to cover the key headlines and the key speakers out of each of these sprints, which was a series really designed to think about how we were currently internationally delivering against this beyond GDP agenda, what common messages we could draw out, what common methods we could draw out to inform how to move forward if we were to develop an FISW, a framework for inclusive sustainable well-being. So in the first session, we focused really on re-landscaping this to make sure that we were building from a common base. Francesca Groom from UNDESA and Eva Havinga, who's with us today, who's an advisor within the network, explored the usefulness of a framework and explored the links with the new Friends of the Chair group on social and demographic statistics to really help to set out a landscape of how such a proposal would sit alongside or succeed things like the SDGs, as well as the wider landscape. Catherine von Rompuy, excuse me, and Jorrit Swinsberg explored what's happening under the SNA so that we could take that information into account as a basis to move forward. Stephen McFeely and Rafael Diaz de Medina explored, excuse me, the historic links of their frameworks covering health, employment and social security, and how that mapped into proposals around a system of population and social statistics, and how you could harmonise their work, which often straddles the social world and the SNA. And then Oliver Chingangwa gave us a viewpoint from Africa and the challenges there around implementing a broader range of social and population statistics and indicators alongside the core economic data. Sprint 2, we used as an opportunity to explore where some of the wider work on beyond GDP is already taking us. So Anu Patola from UN UNCTAD presented a summary of her report, which was co-written with Stefan and others, Valuing What Counts, which outlined a strategy that the UN has at the highest levels around moving towards the Summit of the Future, and clarifying the need to focus on that, on a streamlined set of indicators, which recognise that many NSIs don't have the capacity to deliver a whole set of new indicators, and very much working at how we link that back to data which is predominantly already collected wherever possible. Rutger and Jonathan fed back to us on work which is happening in Europe, both through its funded Research Horizon programs and also its Wellbeing Economy program. Gerard Edding talk to us about the work which has been happening in the Netherlands, about how particularly the importance of engaging members of parliament and stimulating demand for this data from key users, as I think we all recognise that one of the key barriers is not necessarily a lack of producing material, but how we engage users. Cleanna Taylor from my office took us through capitals and how we think about sustainability, environment, human, produce capital, and how we can imaginatively combine these. And then Graciela Marquez took us through the variety of satellite accounts developed in Mexico and how her office has been able to engage users and demonstrate the feasibility to meet beyond GDP requirements. Sprint 3 took us into a new area, and this was related to private sector environmental, social and governance performance, so ESG data. I think we're all very used to thinking about well-being and sustainability and inclusion from the point of view of households and individuals, but thinking about the data that could be made available to us from businesses, I think is a new frontier in this work and one that merits further exploration. So Richard Barker from the ISSB presented 3 lenses on how firms are trying to pull this data together and how the ISSB is trying to provide guidance on metrics to ensure some consistency in this realm. Vincent Seigerink from the OECD looked at how we leverage the concepts of well-being and related metrics to align to the work which is happening in the private sector around ESG, and he reported on the OECD's pilot employee well-being survey to look at how working conditions and well-being outcomes aligned. Helen Slinger took us through the business accounting community's perspectives on these issues and how we can sell these data, or how these data can be sold within the current accounting climate. Jan Emmanuel Deneve talked about his groundbreaking work both on well-being more generally, but also employees' experience of well-being through his the University of Oxford's work happiness scores. Samir Trubelsky from Brock University linked the concepts of GDP and ESG to explore the effects of climate change and well-being from a business level to try and get a more comprehensive view from a country level. And Sonia Rezan presented the Statistics Canada's experimental ESG dashboard, which leverages existing data wherever possible, and how they were looking to explore the development of a benchmarking tool. Oh, sorry, gone too many. So the fourth sprint, took us to domestic wellbeing dashboards. We know that many countries currently use and have designed wellbeing dashboards. These are almost all tailored to the domestic setting, but often share core components in common internationally. So Diane Cook and Mariolette Lotter described the New Zealand experience, which is individual in the sense that they have multiple dashboards, a longer framework which covers more items, which gives a wider picture about living standards, and a shorter framework which draws out the key data to inform Treasury, that is, finance ministry decisions about the allocation of resources. They also picked out that the living standards framework very much uses the indigenous Maori population concept. It's not just their concept, but one that they hold very dear, that actually we shouldn't be looking at a human-centric picture of the world. We should be looking at the world of which humanity is just one part. Eleanor Rees talked about the National Wellbeing Dashboard in the UK, which we reviewed earlier this year and extended to a set of 60 measures, which we are currently looking to provide in the same way that I think New Zealand has a shorter set to live alongside this, which pick out the key metrics on inequality, ensuring and across 10 domains. Dasho Kama-Ura took us through the Bhutanese work on the Bhutanese Gross National Happiness Index and the way it draws together 33 measures through 9 domains. Carrie Wolanski from Statistics Canada gave us an overview of Canada's quality of life framework, which again uses 85 measures in 5 domains. And I think you can see a general theme here that many countries are in this sort of territory of multiple data sets coming down into a set of domains, which are then collated into a dashboard. Carrie Exton shared the OECD's Better Life Index, which shows their work in drawing this data together and presenting it in a more common term. And Amit Yager-Kroll from Israel talked us through UNECE's in-depth research on how different countries have tackled this. Noting that whilst 20 of the 39 responding countries had a legal basis of their measurement framework, many producers had less knowledge of how their data was being used. Again, taking us back to that point of thinking about the user side of the issues. Session 5 took us into thinking about inequality and particularly the issues around distribution. Alexia Thernkrantz talked us through national transfer accounts. Jurrit Swinsberg talked us through household distributional accounts, and Lucas Chancel talked us through the distributional national accounts, all of which are slightly different attempts to answer the question about how wealth, income and consumption are distributed around populations. Yancheng Zhan from the UNDP took us through the Human Development Index, which gives us a slightly wider picture of this, and in particular, the ability to get down to a local level, 24,000 regions globally, to understand risk levels. And I think that level of granularity is fairly unique there. Piedad Erdenola and Eduardo Rios Neto then gave us an overview of this area and thinking about commonalities and comparing the frameworks under discussion and the potential here to see synergies between the three. Although it is worth noting the different treatment of individuals, households and particular data is tailored to different user questions. And so there probably is a place for all three, but probably also a bridging table that explains how to get from one to the other. Sprint session 6, by this point we were well into the autumn. After the session on dashboards, we felt there was a need for a session on composite indices. I covered some of the methodological issues. Leonard Nakamura from Philadelphia talked about how we could use time rather than money or other data to weight a well-being index, reflecting we all have 24 hours in our day and as a way to think about productivity through time savings. Khaled Abu Ismail presented the ESCO's work on the World Development Challenges report and how to develop indicators with intrinsic value, noting here the benefit of having a low correlation with GDP, because if your data is telling the same story as GDP, it's less a complement and more of a substitute. And the more we can capture other elements which are excluded, there may be benefits there. Amit Kapoor from India discussed the geographical challenges of disaggregating social progress index across India and the opportunities this gave to understand well-being in that context. Cleona Taylor presented inclusive income, which is a new composite index that we use in the UK to combine GDP, natural capital accounts, unpaid work data and human capital satellite accounts. And William Mulhava from UNECA discussed how data from the MPI, alongside a variety of microdata, was used to calculate the multidimensional measure of poverty in Africa. And again, focusing in on the need to collect more data and add employment variables so it can be used to calculate economic activities by member states. After a session which allowed us to summarize and draw these together, which gave us our 7 sprints, this effectively allows us to start to think about how we are drawing together all of this information. And I think at its core, we see a proposal which looks surprisingly similar actually to a number of other proposals. One of the things I think has been most satisfying as we've done this work and collected this information is, I would say there are actually different research teams in different areas engaging different communities are often coming up with essentially the same proposal, which is described in this pyramid on the right hand side of this picture, of a measure of subjective well-being, potentially sometimes expanded to consider subjective well-being at a social or community or national level, underpinned by measures of objective drivers of that well-being, which can relate to policy drivers of those things, so health, housing, security, these type of measures, noting the need to think about the dispersal or the distribution of these, and leaning on data around sustainable capitals, or the view of human, environmental, and produced capital to understand how sustainable the delivery of those objective outcomes are, which is driving the subjective well-being. There is definitely in this work a focus in on the here and now, rather than thinking about necessarily the future or elsewhere. But as a starting framework, we see a lot of similarities, I say, with other work, which suggests that there's potential for this to gain wider support. One of the key outstanding issues where I think more work is definitely required is to think about the use and application of private ESG data. And I think underpinning all of this is a growing scientific confidence in the measurement of subjective well-being on the basis of a growing and rich and robust evidence base. When we think about distribution, looking at the DNA, the DINA and the NTA, as I described, whilst there are subtle differences, there are enough similarities that actually between them, they give us a strong perspective of inclusive well-being here and elsewhere, covering mainly the domestic debate. But being able to explain how to get from one to the other, I think, is core to our mission here. And in terms of thinking about capital, whether you think about the national accounts and their satellite accounts, comprehensive wealth produced by the World Bank or inclusive wealth produced by UNEP, as we analyze the data and look at the similarities, I think, again, there is very much a strong set of, a robust set of linkages that we can begin to communicate better and explain and showcase when one data set is probably more advantageous to use for the other than the others. Finally, I think there are, whilst there's always been a debate in this area about whether dashboards or composite indices, drawing data together into a single index, is better, they probably both suffer actually from a core set of challenges about understanding what they mean and presenting trade-offs which are inherent to both. And we're going to make recommendations about how best to bring these together in our report. Going forward, we see a couple of key recommendations that we are putting into the proposal for the next UNSC. The first is that in the area of the SPSS, or the social and demographic side, this is not an area where I think many of us claim great expertise. We very much see that this falls to the Friends of the Chair on Social and Demographic Statistics to take a lead, recognizing, however, that many of these areas are covered in satellite accounts, which are addressed within the system of national accounts, and therefore there will be a role for economic accountants and economic statisticians to play into that debate. But it is as a partner, I think, rather than us assuming that the economic statistics world should lead all of these discussions. In relation to the FISW, I think we very much see that there is such a diversity of work and such a quantity of work that there is a need to bring together a working group or an expert group who can muster and begin to draw out the synergies and the links from all of this work, so that as we agree and finalize the definition, scope and contents for the FISW, we can act as effectively as a clearinghouse to achieve consensus between different approaches and begin to identify which are the strongest and most robust, or simply the most pragmatic for the most countries to be able to use. And within that, there will probably be a need for that expert group to act as a bit of a commissioning function, to allocate out work and potentially pilot exercises to see whether the things that we think work in theory actually work in practice. Underneath this, we definitely are looking to populate a timeline to allow us to work out how and when we can deliver this. We have an ambitious objective currently penciled in for 2028. to deliver a document for global consultation to UNSC, and we will see what feedback we get on that. That takes me to the end of my slides, so I am going to pause there and pass back to you, Shahuda.
Thank you. That's really a lot of information to digest, I think. So Vincent has very kindly shared with us the links on the recordings as well. So each of these session recording is also available, like if we are interested to further revisit these discussions. I still do it myself sometimes. So is there some, I mean, thing that I'm wondering whether Ivo is going to say anything on this one, or?
No, I'm listening attentively.
Okay. Because I can see your
and
name.
thank you, Gracious, for doing a great job. Back to you, Shauda.
Okay, so I think it's the proposed next steps is something that maybe that will be good to discuss at this point, and how the network members feel about this, and then because I know everybody is trying to come up with different aspects to measure this well-being, and all these new they were coming up with dashboards and all these accounts, but the big question is like you are saying, it's not that the information is not there. Yeah, so who would like to jump in? Or I can't see any hands, so
Just while people are thinking, we're not planning on running another sprint series on this topic next year. Our proposal is that the network would participate in the establishment of an expert group or working group, and from that process there may well be further commissions and further webinars, further opportunities to get involved, but our plan would be for the network to be very actively involved in that space, and making sure that particularly the thing that we bring, which is that voice from a variety of NSIs, is heard at that table.
Thank you. I can see Andre.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yep.
I have a question mainly for Stefan. So as we move forward and sort of we put out the report, which suggests the creation of yet another group to look at where the statistical community goes with beyond GDP. I wonder what your feeling is on the pulse of the international community for the creation of one such group, and if you can give us advice in terms of where we have potential roadblocks that we could perhaps stick handle ahead of the commission. So I'm just wondering sort of where, if you think that this will be endorsed or meet resistance.
Shahuda, should I go ahead and respond directly? Yeah,
Yes,
thank you. I see you
please.
nodding. You're the boss. No, quickly, I see two avenues or processes, and one is this very high level discussion, political discussion on GDP and beyond, and developing. There were originally even these pardon my French, crazy ideas of creating a sustainable development index or something, which I was fighting and for the United Nations, because I'm not a big fan of these things and so on and so forth. But that it's very difficult to predict how that discussion will go. This discussion will probably, it comes from our Secretary General's office, it comes from some countries who want to do that. I think there will be a political dimension first in our policy frame brief. We had framed it that way, that there needs to be a political discussion. Don't throw it to the statisticians and say develop a dashboard of beyond GDP and beyond, but to first develop a value framework. What is it? What you actually want to measure? And then the statisticians and the statistical community can help with populating this with reasonable and measurable indicators and so. But because this political process is very difficult to predict, it will probably go in fits and jerks, and there are some markers in the agenda, like the Summit of the Future in September. There, some countries they will definitely want to have some language. And so what it means for us is that we need to watch this. We need to be on standby. We need to be, as a statistical commission, to be able to make contributions and intervene before this political discussion hands us something that we'll find very difficult to react to. So that's one thing that we definitely need to decide at the Statistical Commission, to be on standby. And I think this needs to be, for that, a group could be helpful, because they could be reacting very, very quickly, evaluating ongoing proposals and something like that. But I really also, I mean, it needs to be, the commission needs to be involved at the highest level. I mean, sort of the bureau of the commission needs to be able to respond very quickly. So that's one avenue. And then there is a much longer term avenue. This is what Richard alluded to, is like, for instance, the research work for which is more like inside the statistical community, like this discussions on developing frameworks and integrated frameworks. And there are different opinions out there, but I think it's an important discussion to have, because fundamentally we as a statistical community, we need to answer the question of the how are our different statistical subsystems related to each other, so that politicians can answer questions of trade-off. I mean, if they run one set of policies, it will have a positive impact on the economy or the social sphere or the environment, and a negative one on the others. And how do we inform politicians, and how do we understand ourselves these nexus? Is it in the form of a framework or an indicator system or so? And I think this is an important discussion we need to have, and we need to have it within our community. So I think with these two strands of homework, so to speak, on the horizon, I would hope that the Statistical Commission is willing to support a group that is keeping an eye on this important topic. But we will see. I mean, so far I haven't heard any pushback or in either direction. I mean, nobody came to me and says this is the greatest idea since the invention of the spoon, nor did somebody come and say, no, we should not do that. But we should, it's good that you asked that question. We should definitely feel, have a finger on the pulse.
Thank you, Stefan.
Thanks.
So, would anyone else want to say anything on this? If not, then maybe we can move to the discussion that we have on the proposed topics for the further work by the network. And if there's always time, we can come back and answer or raise the questions later. So we will have this small presentation on this topic by Andre and then Hadi. So I would like to hand over to Andre.
Okay, thank you. If you'll give me 1 second, I'll attempt to share my screen. That worked okay, sort of at the beginning of the meeting. We'll see if it still works now. So do you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so as we think about the forward looking work plan for the network, we've been discussing ideas. I believe at the last or at the first informal discussion we had a few weeks ago, the topic of data strategies came up, and and that got me thinking that perhaps the network could organize a series of sprints around data strategies. And what I've got on the screen here is summarizes, I think, a little bit our approach in Canada. So on the left, the panel that you see there is really the government of Canada's or the public service of the government of Canada, and sort of our view on data strategies there. So at the center is this idea that that data is an asset, and as an asset, we should be leveraging it to give better services to Canadians. Working with our colleagues in government, we developed a data strategy for the Federal Public Service. There's a few foundational pillars there. One is on people, so that's the talent pillar. There's a pillar related to governance and how we effectively manage data. And then there's more of a technology pillar, which talks about how to process and the various tools at our disposal to sort of manage data. If we go up, the vision is that the data that the government collects, shares, protects, and uses to benefit Canadians. We have guiding principles associated with the vision. Has to be client-centric. It has to be purposeful, enabling, and so on. Ethics is a big component, and of course trust. And so the government of Canada developed a strategy around that, and there's very tangible things that are moving in that space. In Canada, we look at data, or at StatScan, we look at data as well from a stewardship lens, and this is more or less how we view our role in terms of stewardship. So there's a data quality element. There's obviously a data standards element. There's a data management element, sharing and access, the building of actual individual data strategies with departments and so on. Data science plays a big role, data analytics, governance, protection of data, and promoting data literacy. And at the heart of all that is subject matter expertise. So what the idea here it would be to organize a sprint series, probably 3 or 4 sessions that would build on these topics. Statistics Canada, I think, is prepared to lead this work, and just trying to sort of gauge interest on that. And we could probably set that up in the latter parts of 2024 if the network sort of thinks it's a good idea. The other one that I thought would be really interesting is to organize a sprint around housing statistics. We've covered housing in terms of owner-occupied housing in the CPI as part of the network, but housing is much broader. It's got demographic, economic, environmental, regulatory perspectives. We could look at elements of prices, elements of how do you measure supply, and also dig into the more social aspects. So when we're thinking about connecting environmental, economic, and social statistics, I think housing is a really good platform to sort of explore. So this is another idea that I think the network could address, and certainly happy to hear your views on it. So I'll stop sharing my screen now, and I think we could just turn the floor over to Hadi. He'll present some ideas on data science and so on, and then I think Shahuda, we can have a bit of a conversation on where folks think we could go on this.
Hadi?
Okay, thank you very much.
You have a
Let
slide
me,
or yeah.
yeah, allow me to share my screen. It's visible.
Good.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to present about the potential of utilizing AI, especially in statistical works. As we might be aware that starting from November 2022, we are in the euphoria of using AI tools. It is started by the release of ChatGPT by the OpenAI, and only in 2 months the subscribers of ChatGPT could reach 100 million. So it is a big matter for IT business. So then the only in a couple of months, it is followed by lots of companies and also developers that produce AI. Some of them are the same with ChatGPT, which are the general AI. Like this AI can handle lots of tasks, like ChatGPT or Google also release something like that. Is BART. And also, there are also narrow AI, which are artificial intelligence with specific capabilities, and so it can handle only specific tasks, starting from summarizing documents, taking out the key point from a document, and also assisting in writing, assisting in drawing. Lots of human tasks can be done by AI, and only in a couple of months later, we have a long list of AI that we cannot put them all here because it's quite various. But from this long list of AI, some of them are suitable to assist the statistical work. Like in the first massive task of the statistical works, which is data collection, AI can be used to automate the data collection. Not to mention the data collection of new sources of data, like we already discussed about big data and things like that. Even for conventional data source, the use of AI can be quite helpful, especially in eliminating human errors. With this AI, it can generate algorithm to clean the data for preprocessing and also extraction of feature. In this case, lots of companies, which are old school of companies already familiar with the IT area, enhance their functionality by including AI functions in their tools. Like in this example, we have some companies. And also for statistical analysis, which is the important point of the statistical work, we have several AI dedicated to assist us in doing statistical analysis, like in predictive analytics, clustering, and classification. This works like classification, especially very useful if we are dealing with complex data sets or we are dealing with large database. Because for some data, like in the text form, sometimes it will take a lot of time for us to label the data, to classify the data because of the variety of the text that we have. In this case, lots of products of AI also can be used, and some of them are already familiar for statistical works, but these products are enhanced by the functionality of AI. And then in case of data visualization and reporting, AI also can be used to do this work. This is actually the work where some part of it is beyond the statistical skill, because it also relates to the aesthetical knowledge, and also how to make our visualization and reports interesting and easy to understand. In this case, some AI tools can be utilized to do the work. But besides those good things about AI, there are also ethical concerns regarding the use of AI. The first group is related to the privacy concerns. In this case, we have the issue of confidentiality. Like when we are using AI, we also submit information and data to the AI model. So in this case, there is a possibility that the data and information that we submit to AI also have confidentiality issues. So in this case, we have to address this issue. And there is also transparency issue because in most of cases, the AI proceed our data in something like in a black box. We don't know what happened in the data, but we just receive the results. And also there is an accountability issue, not only related to the confidentiality of data, but also related to the result produced by AI, which doesn't have accountability. And then there is also fairness issue in this case, in a meaning that when AI will produce the results, depends on the skill of the users. If the user has limited skill to use AI, the result of the results of from this AI model will also be limited, something like that. And then we have also a group of concern which related to the behavior drift. Behavior drift is the changing of consideration inside the AI because of the newly inputted data. So if we for example, if we submit a data set and also submit tasks to the AI, the result will be unstable. Like if we submit again the similar data and with similar tasks, the result may be different. So there is a behavior drift in this case, which will cause the inaccurate decision and also lack of trust of our statistics product. And because we as statisticians are familiar with the certainty and consistency of our product, but with AI, we are introduced to something like uncertainty and inconsistency of the product. This may lead to legal implications, of course. Some ideas to take care of this issue is by securing the training data used by AI. The training data is the data imputed to AI to make the AI understand the context, and then will be the base for this AI to do the task. The first one, there is a possibility for us to running our own AI service, which can be used by NSO. And with this own AI service, of course, we can secure the input, and we can do periodic retraining. In this case, yes.
Can you? Yeah, I'm just wondering about the discussion time. So if you can try to wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. In this case, we can also provide the manual in using AI if running the AI service on service is not possible. Yeah, from the perspective of user like us, there are potential enhancement by AI, which are in terms of data collection, data management, automating the classification and cataloging, and quality control. To go to these directions, we need to emphasize the need for continuous learning and collaboration between technologies like data science leaders network and others. And also we have to establish firm and agile regulation or recommendation to be implemented at country level. And then we have to, we can ensure a technical and non-technical readiness to utilize AI. This is the example on how easy we can use the AI, because we are using the human language, and the result will be very fast. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Richard, Andre and Hadi for this. So it's like already we have a hands up from Jackie. So I will just give the floor to Jackie.
Thank you, and thank you so much for the suggestions about the future work programme. So I had a couple of questions and a couple of comments. So first of all, in terms of data strategies and data stewardship, I'm wondering how much that's already been encapsulated in part of the IMF DGI recommendations 13 and 14. So I'm just conscious about, not duplicating some other international initiatives. In terms of AI, I'm wondering how much that's actually being encapsulated as part of the HLG MOS agenda. I'm not sure on that one. That's a question. I think personally, from my perspective, what I would really like is to think about for the work agenda for next year is actually, we've got this huge challenge of implementing SNA 25 and BPM 7. And on a personal note, I'd really like to have a focus about sharing the experiences of our plans for implementing the manual updates, the challenges in terms of seeking data sources and developing methods, and being able to share that. Because to date, the only thing I've seen in relation to that is a OECD survey as part of the National Accounts Working Party. And I knew I took huge comfort in understanding what other countries' plans were for that. And then the other thing is, from an economic measurement perspective, is that net zero is the next industrial revolution for economic statistics. And again, I wonder whether that's maybe something that we should be thinking about in terms of, well, what are the measurement challenges around the net zero agenda in terms of their impact, you know, every aspect of the economy, but also society and environment as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jackie. I think we just take a few more points. I can see Carsten. Would you like to? Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Shahuda. Yeah, I just a few comments. I thought also just in general, I would encourage also to be aware of coordinating and reaching out to groups which are already engaged in some of these areas, which were suggested. I mean, data strategies, housing, and the utilization of AI. I think this is very important also, as the previous speaker said, to avoid also any duplication of work and creating any confusion among countries. We had, as you know, we had there was one of the sprints where we had a presentation by Amit Yogur-Kroll from Israel, who is the chair of our task force on measuring well-being that was established by the Conference of European Statisticians a couple of months ago, and we have started the work there. And there we received a couple of questions from some of the member countries. We have 12, 13 member countries there, pretty much spread over the whole world, more or less, a bit more from Europe, of course. But some asked actually how we wanted to ensure coordination with the initiatives of the network of the economic statisticians, and also because I think it was mentioned during one of these sprints that maybe there should be some set of core indicators for measuring well-being, and this is exactly one of our mandates to come up with in this task force that was established to come up with some indicators on this area. So there was a reason why people asked this, and I was actually not sure what to reply to these colleagues. Then I would also just add that we have the high-level group on the modernization of official statistics, and we are about to launch a publication on the use of data science tools for official statistics, including AI and machine learning, and you name it, here by the end of the year. And there's a lot of countries that have been involved in that. Also, some of your colleagues from many of your organizations, I can see. We also had the Conference of European Statisticians. They agreed on or adopted a report on data stewardship in June 22, which is available on the web. There's a lot of work already done in these areas. Thanks.
Thank you. So I think I'll give the floor to Andre now.
Yeah, thanks, Sir Shahuda. Perhaps just a bit of a response to both Jackie and Karsten. You're absolutely right. I think, on any topic, I think that we'll choose, to tackle in the network. There's already work that's happening. I don't think there's a lot of topics that nobody's covering. So the idea behind the network is actually to coordinate. And to me, sort of on any of these topics, and perhaps data science is a separate one, but the idea would be to bring to organize sprint sessions, much like we did with the Beyond GDP work, and sort of highlight all the work that the various players are doing, and perhaps find out where there are gaps, where countries need to focus on, and so on. So that's really the intent. The intent is not to sort of start a new initiative and for the UN to take over. It's really about bringing the work together. To Jackie's comment on duplication with the DGI with respect to data strategy, and I suppose to some of the UNECE work that was done. The idea there was as a response to sort of some members of this network that felt that this is a topic that we could be looking at. But maybe I'll defer to Jim and a few others to say like if there is actually duplication there. And I guess on the two other topics, SNA implementation, perhaps we could cover that, but I thought that was well covered by ISWIGNA and sort of the OECD and a few other groups that are very active in the SNA update. So to me, I think this is an area that perhaps is not the best area for the network to look at. Net zero is certainly a possibility. But anyways, maybe Jim, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that with respect to duplication. But again, the idea for me was to coordinate all this.
Yeah, maybe just jump in quickly. So I think there are some synergies here, and if you want to call it duplication, I mean the DGI recommendations are around data sharing and data access. So there's a lot of overlap in terms of data stewardship on those two topics. Where the network may be able to help out, of course, the DGI is a G20 initiative, so the reach of that is somewhat limited. So maybe the network can be used to expand the work of that group to a greater set of countries, and so that might be where the synergies exist between the DGI task teams we set up for those recommendations and the work of the network, sort of promoting that work more broadly across the community.
Thank you. Seems to me like Stefan want to say something.
Unmute. No, I'm first of all, I want to say I'm impressed by the topics and the ambition and so and yes, I mean I like the fundamental principles, and I just wanted to stress that I think we have that we will always build on works of others, not reinventing the wheel, but adding value. Perhaps just in the spirit that Jim just mentioned, that you take the work that is perhaps done in one part of the world or by a group of countries and broadcast it to the whole globe. So these are things that the network, I think, can be usefully to be doing. But no, otherwise, I'm saying all of these are wonderful and interesting topics, and perhaps we should have a little bit more of an exchange of how we can sequence them or prioritize them. And I'm looking forward to discussing these things in 2024.
Thank you. Would any other network members like to share your thoughts, or if you have any other topics in mind? I can't see any hands yet, so maybe we can still, yeah. Andre, you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, as we meet regularly with the Bureau, we often want to have these discussions about priorities. So suggest that, at an upcoming Bureau meeting, we discuss obviously the results of this conversation, but sort of where we want to go. But also if others have ideas about other topics, we encourage communications with the Bureau. So just send emails so we can actually sort of put the topics in the queue for discussion.
Thank you. Is there any more interventions? If not, then I think it's time to wrap up. So it's I really thank all of the presenters, and also I think this time we had a lot of questions, and as well as feedback from the network members. So for that, I'm really thankful that we got this interest with this discussion. So I would like to thank all the participants who have provided your comments, questions, and also we look forward to getting more comments and feedback so that we can try to shape this in a way that is like beneficial to all the countries, and then to try and make it in such a way that we are not like duplicating any work, and then to try and like streamline along the lines of the objectives of the network. So I would like to thank Stephanie, Richard, Andre, and Hardy, and also the organizers, Benson, Jackie, and Daniela. So before we complete this session, I would also like to remind that we have the third webinar on the International Classification Sprint that is going to be coming up on the January 31st. So it is something that maybe network members would like to register and look forward to. And we are also in the process of organizing this side event that Stefan also mentioned. So once the date is confirmed, we will be informing the members. And this side event will be organized around a discussion on the idea of coordinating updates of the International Classifications Frameworks manuals, discussing the benefits and challenges of integration, but also the challenges that countries currently face in updating the frameworks. So with that, I would like to close the session by thanking all of you for spending this time with us. And we have still almost everyone with us who joined. So that is a very good indication. So thank you, Stefan, and thanks everyone for this session. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you,
Bye.
Shahuda.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Shahuda.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Take care around the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.